Alrighty, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our workshop, Back to Basics, Building Smart Automations with HubSpot Workflows, where we're going to dive into everything Workflows has to offer. We've all used it, we've all seen it, but there is so much we can do with Workflows, and Erica, our HubSpot expert, is going to walk us through some of the most important and some of the most useful functionalities that Workflows provides us. Um, so do we just want to introduce ourselves?
Yeah, hang on. I'm just going to enable the chat for everybody. I realize, sorry guys, this is a first time on our new platform. So I'm just gonna let you guys get in on the chat. I'll go over that in a moment, but chat should be open now. Um,
We also
here
have a
we go.
QR code to join our LinkedIn group. So we are part of the Sales Enablement group for HubSpot user group based in North America. We do tons of virtual workshops every quarter, and we have tons of resources around sales enablement and everything related to kind of sales and marketing within HubSpot as well. So join our LinkedIn group, scan the QR code. I'm also going to drop a link in the chat to the LinkedIn group.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. All right, chat looks like it's working. I see a few of you already found the Q&A, but also please feel free to use the Q&A for questions throughout, so that we can see what you're asking and any questions you have. We'll try to answer them live as we go, but it is also possible we do have some Q&A time at the end. So if there's any longer questions or more in-depth ones, we'll go over them then as well. Okay. See, we have about 18, 20 people. We still might get some people popping in, but we are at the hour, so let's get going. All right. So let's do a quick introduction here. So we are your Hug leaders. I'll go first. My name is Erica Josephson. I am the Revenue Operations Manager at Flawless Inbound. We are powered by GSI. We are a HubSpot partner, as well as a partner for some Oracle technologies, and we are your sales enablement HubSpot user group leaders. I have been working as a HubSpot admin for just over 8 years, and I love workflows. I think they're probably the most powerful tool that HubSpot has. So I'm really excited to go over all of that with you today. And I am here with my co-host, Shani.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shawnee. I'm the marketing manager for HubSpot, our line of business within GSI. So we're powered by GSI, which is a professional services organization offering a whole range of services. Um, and I'm here to support Erica. So she is kind of the HubSpot expert. She knows everything you need to know about HubSpot. Really, I can't stress that enough. And I use workflows not as much as I should, to be perfectly honest. Erica has taught me a few things over the years, but that only scratches the surface of everything Workflows offers. And I can't wait to kind of watch the presentation and the walkthrough as well to kind of get some tips and tricks on how best I can use Workflows because I know I'm not using it enough. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys share the same sentiment as well. So yeah, let's dive in.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. I got a couple of quick housekeeping items to go over first. And while I do that, Jenny's going to pop up some polls related to usage of workflows. Please give us a couple of quick answers in there so we can kind of gauge how everyone's doing with workflows, and let us know how you're feeling about those items. So while you're answering the poll, I just wanted to say welcome again to everyone who's joined us since we said welcome before. Thank you so much. If this is your first hug, thank you so much for coming and joining us. If you have been to one of our hugs before, welcome back. We're very happy to have you again. This is our first hug using a new platform. You'll see we are on Zoom rather than Bevy, which was the previous system. And we are now using HiveBright, which is a sort of a webinar event platform to run our hugs going forward. So you might see some changes. Thank you for your patience with changing of links and things as the entire hug program at HubSpot gets migrated from Bevy to HiveBright. So that will be happening. You will find a few new features on HiveBright, such as a group chat. If you are part of the sales enablement group overall, you will be able to have some conversations, some Q&A with our team directly on the HiveBright platform. That's hard to say. And also we'll be able to send some newsletters and marketing emails through there. As always, if you want to keep up with next sessions, you can join the LinkedIn group. That is where we have a bunch of our announcements, and video recaps are also shared there, as well as an email. But we definitely always share the links there to the videos and the recordings. And also, just letting you know, our next session, we're going to be talking about a starting from basics as part of our Back to Basics series on the new projects object in HubSpot. So if you are curious about projects and how that new object works and how you can use it for CSM, sort of PM kind of tool, then please join us there. We're going to have a wonderful PM from our organization join us to show how he's using that piece of the platform for his day to day. Okay.
Looks like we have some results from the poll.
Um,
As I mean, we've got a good variety of people in terms of their level of expertise with workflows, but most of them are in the kind of the middle of the ground, medium mark. Um, More no's in terms of trying the new AI features and workflows, so that'll be really exciting to get into today. And then as well, most people, as I suspected, they haven't explored everything workflows has to offer. So, we're excited to kind of take you through some use cases today.
Perfect. Thank you. Knowing everybody is, or most people are kind of at a medium-ish level is good. I can make sure to tailor some of the presentation to that. Also, if you want to type in the chat a sort of a free text question, what your maybe biggest issue or learning curve or feature you wish you had with workflows is, go ahead and do that, because that will be very interesting to know when we get to the Q&A section at the end. Maybe we can answer some of that as well. So today we are going to go through about 8 things. So I'm going to try and get into it right away. It is primarily going to be live demoing in our demo environment. So we've done introductions. That's checked off. We're going to talk a little bit about why workflows matter. We're going to go over the home base, so the main workflows page. We're going to look at building a first workflow and all of the options involved in that. We're going to talk about a couple of essential things you need to know and some advanced actions that you might want to start looking at if you are a little bit more skilled in your workflows journey. We'll talk about testing, launching, and troubleshooting workflows. And then I have a couple of power user hidden secret tips to share as well throughout and at the end of the presentation. All right. Shani's going to monitor the Q&A and the chat as well. And then we will get into that. I will try to keep an eye on some of the chat, but I'm going to be looking at my other monitor here. All right. So let's go. Let's jump right in. All right, just a quick note as we jump into the demo, which is that this is a demo portal, so none of the data that you see in here is real. This is all dummy data that we have imported into our demo portal to go over some of these items. But I am going to just pull up my notes on the side as well. All right. So this is the general platform. So this is where you come when you go to workflows. In case you are unfamiliar with that, that is over here in the automation tab and then workflows. Once you are jumped in here, you'll see a lot of changes in here. And this is because HubSpot has done a lot to increase the capabilities of workflows over the last couple of years, especially with some of the upgrades at Spring Spotlight and Fall Spotlight or at Inbound. And that's really good, but also that has caused some confusion for a lot of people that we work with, because there's a lot of new things in here. Sometimes they reorganize things, sometimes they change where you click or how you navigate to something, and that can cause confusion and issues. So I did want to just start with going over, what's going on this part of the platform and how can you use it best. So one thing that I really want to point out as you are getting started in your journey with workflows, especially you guys who are always medium in your skill level, there is folders. Now, I know it can be a big thing to think about folder structure and to remember to always put something in folders, but I strongly, strongly recommend that you come up with a folder structure and that you start using folders. Otherwise, you're going to end up with hundreds and hundreds of workflows that are completely unsorted, and you're going to have to remember the name to possibly type them in and find that information. So these are a couple of folder structures that we recommend. This is for another demo, but you can consider it to just say ticketing if you do have Service Hub. But a few of the workflow folders that I like to use is I like to separate them. I like to have marketing as its own folder, and that's where I would usually put things like email automation, sending emails to people, capturing website visits, things like that. Lifecycle automation, assignment and routing, or assignment or routing, and then data quality and transformation, which is just changing properties or changing fields. Those are some of my recommended folders, and ticketing, if you do have that, as a overall like structure for a pretty basic set of folders that you can keep things organized into. Of course, you can get way more in depth than that. You could have like lead assignment for this and for that and for that, but this is a fairly standard set of folders that I would recommend. Um, Up in here as well, I will also share a fun little pro tip that I really like. And something that often bothers me is when you are looking at workflows in this view. I'll get back to the all workflows view. There we go. When you're looking at workflows in this view, sometimes I'm like, oh, like, where am I doing this or where am I doing that? I can't remember, what workflows are doing this or that I might need to check on. And that's why one of my new favorite filters is action type. So this filter allows you to look at workflows that have specific actions in them, which can be very helpful. Like I'm like, oh, what workflows are sending an internal email notification? Because my sales reps will reach out and they'll go, hey, can you add something to this notice for me? And I'm like, I have no idea where that workflow is or what that workflow came from. So this is one of my favorite ones, most especially for send internal email notification, because I'm always getting questions from our sales team about like, oh, where did that come from? And you can just filter by this, and this will bring up all the workflows that have internal email notification actions in them. And then, I mean, you still have to sort through those, but at least now you're not sorting through ones that don't even have that. For those of you who do surveys, sequence enrollment, things like that, there's all of those handy filters in there as well. Workflows that create tasks. So if you're ever getting questions about like what workflow is doing that, or where can I find what workflow is doing that, this is a way to sort of start. And you can even use your integrations as well, so to figure out which workflows are impacting your integrations, which I think is like extremely useful. So I really like the action type filter, would recommend using that. The other thing you can find up here is the analysis. We're going to go over this review automation issues a little bit later in the section about troubleshooting, but I will point out the analyze tab. And I will just note here that, in fact, this is not my favorite tab. I don't necessarily think there's a ton of super useful information here, especially if you're someone who has like 200 workflows. If you're just getting started out with workflows and you have like 10, this might be a useful place to look and see like, oh, I don't have enough workflows for my whatever tickets, but I got 20 for deals. It might be useful to you. Once you have like hundreds, it can be a little bit less useful to look at. The health tab, I do think, is quite good, but I wanted to point this out to all of you. If you do use this, similar workflows report is being sunset on March 16th. I don't actually know what is coming in to replace that at this time, but prior to March 16th, if you have not looked in the similar workflows report, I would recommend coming in and doing it to have a look at what potential duplicates or redundancies you have in your workflows. So when you come in here, you can see all workflows that it thinks there are similar ones to. So it thinks that this workflow has another one that might be a duplicate. When you click on that, it's going to explain why. It's because the enrollment criteria is the same. So maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it's different, but maybe that's a workflow I could consolidate. If the enrollment criteria is the same, maybe I can do both actions in one workflow. So that's just something to have a look at before March 16th, if you are able to. All right, now let's get going into creating a workflow. So creating a workflow, this has changed from previous. And I know we're talking about AI tools a little bit later. I will be honest with everyone and say that I have not found a ton of success with the create workflow from AI. There are AI features in the workflows that I think can be useful. But the create with AI, just because most of my workflows are a little bit too complex for that, it so far has not been very successful. If you have a very basic HubSpot setup, if you have, you're using mostly all standard properties, not a lot of custom ones, and you're trying to like do one thing, transform one piece of data, with AI can be useful. But right now, I think it's maybe just not quite there yet. But I will point out some AI features that I think are useful. But don't get too frustrated with the create with AI feature because I think it is not that difficult to create a pretty basic workflow. And so I don't know that it's 100% necessary for you right now if you're just trying to do something basic. Yeah, Claude, you can ask some of those other ones to help. One of the issues I have found with that is if you do have the integration with HubSpot where it like knows your fields and stuff, that can be really useful because then it has the correct information. If you don't have that kind of integration with HubSpot and your LLM, then sometimes the LLM will be like, use this property, which you don't even have, and then the workflow gets even more confused. So that can be, less helpful. I will point out there is a based on the chat about integrating with Claude. My favorite place to use that is with the custom code actions, which I'll get to a little bit later. But I think that's a little bit more useful place than creating a new workflow. Okay, this has changed a little bit. If you haven't used workflows in a while, or if you were used to the old system, you'll know that the first thing you used to do when creating a workflow was to choose a object. But now you choose your action first. And there's a few reasons for that. A lot of people were like, oh my God, I can't choose if it's contacts or deals anymore. But that has changed. And there's a few reasons for that. And I actually think it is useful to do it this way because sometimes you figure out what objects you need to reference after you know what you're trying to do with your workflow. So at the top, we have the three basic ones, the three most used ones, which is the manual trigger, the Met filter criteria, and the on a schedule. I want to point out about Met filter criteria. This technically is this record meets a set of filter conditions. That's the same. That's the same trigger. If you pick that, something that often gets a little bit mixed up with this is property value changed. And so I see a lot of people uncertain what the difference is between meets a set of filter conditions and property value changed. And so something that I usually like to say is that I prefer property value changed when we're talking about a single update without additional conditions. And I know you can put additional conditions on property value changed, but I usually try to only use that when it is a like I'm looking at life cycle stage goes from MQL to SQL. Then great, use that. But if you're looking at, life cycle stage goes from MQL to SQL, and also the contract is in this industry and owned by this person, and this happens, and that has already been done, then I would use record meets a set of filter conditions. And with that one, you can just use is known or is this, and it will still trigger on the change. So people are like, oh, but I can only pick is known when I choose this one, and I want to pick is changed to. That is the same thing essentially. So when you say life cycle stage is SQL, that's the same thing as property value changed to SQL. So it works the same way. So really use this one if you have a single change. Use this one if you have a bunch of conditions. The other one that I wanted to point out is fairly new, which is some new events triggers. So you didn't used to be able to trigger workflows on all of these events. Some of them, like call events and meeting events, are new. I think email events also. And so these are things that happen with phone calls or emails, sales emails, and meetings in your CRM. So you can now say that I want a workflow to kick off when a call ends with a contact. I find this is pretty useful for teams that are trying to set up tasks or set up follow-ups as soon as calls have been completed. This is a really useful trigger that we didn't have before. So definitely come in and check that out if you are a company that uses like follow up immediately after calls happen, and maybe not, you can't necessarily have your team manually creating all those follow up options. All right. The other ones are some marketing things. So you can trigger it on some media and marketing interactions. You can trigger it on other workflows or sequences happening. And then you have your custom code, which we'll go into a little bit later on the more advanced actions section. All right. So those are the new triggers. So then let's use Met filter criteria because that's kind of the most standard one. Now this is where you get to choose your object. And one thing that I will say here is people often want cross object enrollment, which you can do. And then they're like, but which one do I choose? So I want to know about the contacts that are associated to companies that have this value. Pick the one that you said first, basically. So if you said, I want contacts that are associated to companies that have this value, choose contacts, and then add the company as the second filter in your object. So let's say in this case, we are going to look at contacts. Okay, so now we have all of our options for adding in all of our stuff. One thing that I'll say is sometimes something that you might think is a marketing interaction is actually a property. For example, a lot of people are like, I want to know, how many marketing emails they've clicked on. So they come down to marketing emails, and then in here you just have your list of marketing emails, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. The contact property number of marketing emails is where you would actually find that, not under marketing emails, which I know can be confusing. But if you can't find it under marketing interactions, try having a look for it as a contact property instead. And then obviously you have your membership and everything as well. All right, so I'm going to hop back out of here and into the pre-prepared one for the demo. So I can show you something about re-enrollment because I did see a question about that earlier, or at least a chat about re-enrollment not being straightforward. Okay. The chat said getting people to re-enroll a set period of time after completing a workflow. We can go over that one in the questions. Yeah, referencing more than one object with re-enrollment is not easy because, sorry, this is taking a minute to load here, because actually you can't. So you'll see when you turn on your re-enrollment triggers, if you have a contact in the enrollment and then you also have like the contact is associated to this company, the association property is not available as a re-enrollment trigger. So usually what I would do if that is like a big hindrance is I would often actually just create a sync property between contacts and companies and make the property a contact property as well, just so that you can have that show up in there. And we'll have a look at that in 1 second. So here is an example of a enrollment that I created. So record meets custom conditions. And what I have added here is we're looking at one that has a high number of marketing emails clicked and at least one page view. And then down here, and I will show you how we did this one, which is the association. So adding an associated record as a trigger, we'll go into add triggers. And what you do is you just come up to the top of, and apologies for the slight delay here. You just come up to the top where it says filtering on. Property value change. Sorry, I just saw a chat distracted me. I will come back to that. All right, so let's go filtering on, and then we will choose the associated object. So we'll choose company. We'll go to company properties. We'll say, I know this doesn't really make sense, but we'll choose industry. And then we'll just pick a value there. So when we look here, we can see now we can choose what our company property value is. So industry is any of accounting. And then one thing that to be aware of is if you use like association labels or buying roles and things like that, you can use that in your cross object filtering. So, and that's going to freeze on me now. There we go. All right. So you can use that in your cross object filtering by clicking up here on the contact is associated to section. From there, you will have some options on what to run your filter on. So like, oh, that does not want to work for me. I'm gonna back out of here quickly for a second, then we'll come back. Okay, I will address the question here in the chat. We hope to be, the question says, someday I hope to we'll be able to trigger off a property value change, not known versus not known, but changes to a different known value. So you can actually do that. And I can go into the demo one and show that if it will let me back out of here. Oh boy. Thank you for your patience. First time using the new platform here. Didn't realize the screen share. I'm going to get rid of the slides. Maybe that will help. Yes, there will be a email after as well. I would really recommend, just because we're on this new platform and the email has been a little bit slow. I would actually really recommend joining the LinkedIn group to get the follow-up link, just in case. We are definitely going to try to email to everybody, but there will be a email follow-up as well that is coming out of Hivebright. Thank you for joining us. All right, hop back into workflows. This share is going to be super slow. Was there anything in the Q&A?
I think you addressed everything.
Okay. Let me know if anything comes up. Let's come back to from scratch. All right. So property change values, let's look at that because we had a question. So one of the options that you can choose in the data values section is property value changed. So this is where you can look at from one known value to another one. And so that is one property value changed. We'll do contact and we'll try something like life cycle stage in a moment. And this will allow you to say what you like, a specific property change rather than just it's now this. So let's go life cycle stage. This is a pretty common one. A lot of people are triggering on it. So it says property name is, and then new value is known. So what you would want to do for this one is, instead of new value is known, pick new value is the specific one that you're looking for. And something that we get, so now we want to know about SQLs. Something that we get pretty often is, what about if I want it changed from one thing to another thing instead of just changed from anything to this one? What I would do in that case is I would add a second criteria first. Like I would add a criteria that first says it is this. So my enrollment criteria would be life cycle stage is MQL. And then I would add a branch that comes next that says, then you do the property value changed. I hope, does that make sense for who was the asker of this question? I think Robin. Let me know if that makes sense or if that's helpful to you. Oh, you want to know about a property value change rather than I see. So the problem I have is first names are getting overwritten by a ticket with wrong data. So name might go from, oh, so you're trying to look at triggering the workflow if it has changed to, I see. I do have a suggestion for that, Robin, but it's a little bit more complicated than this would be. So if you want, I can drop my email in here. If you want to send me a quick email, I can send you a information on that because I do have a sort of solution for that. which is something that I use for company name change because we have had some issues with company name change being incorrect in our system for some time. So yeah, I'll send you that email. Feel free to pop me an email. We can do some follow up there. Anybody who has follow up questions, feel free to send me an email. But yeah, I can explain that one. It's a little bit much for the session here today, but I will send that through to you. Thank you. All right. So, re-enrollment we were talking about. So this is what happens when you go to next. You can add additional conditions, but that we'll skip for now. And then in the settings, this is where you turn on or off re-enrollment. And this is where you see issues happening with re-enrollment for certain things. So what you'll see in this case is there would be a box underneath here that says, and I can see my screen share is not sharing what it's supposed to be sharing. Okay, this box underneath here that says that you cannot enroll for that specific condition. So in that case, you would see something like this criteria is not eligible for X re-enrollment. And the reason for that is, I don't know always, but sometimes it's because the conditions would always be met going forward. So one thing that we see with marketing workflows is something like I want to do a re-enrollment every time that somebody opens 3 emails. So I set my trigger as has opened 3 emails. But the problem with that is that it is a single count. So it's going to say that once they've opened 3 emails, they have always opened 3 emails. You would need to set up like additional workflows or if then branches going down from there for the next time that happened. Or you would want to go like for an is known thing first and then do a branch in order to get that to turn on. Hopefully this one will work again now. All right. Re-enrollment. The other thing that we can go over is unenrollment conditions. So when you do turn on your workflow, you will also see unenrollment conditions. I am not someone who uses those super often because I don't have a lot of really long workflows. So unenrollment conditions really only work if you have a lot of delays within your workflow. So where you would have like, for example, like 10-day delays or longer than that. And then you would want someone to get out of the workflow if during that delay they no longer met the criteria. But if you have a workflow that just is going to happen all at once, like this one where there's no delay, then there's not really a reason to use an unenrollment criteria because they're going to pass through the entire workflow before they even have a chance to meet any unenrollment criteria. All right. Let's click on this. Okay, so in our settings here, since we've already set this, here's the re-enrollment where I can explain what it might look like if something is not eligible. So always make sure to check this. When you turn on re-enrollment, always check what is eligible and what isn't. So right here we have the following eligible record conditions can't be used for re-enrollment. So this is what I was talking about before, where you cannot use something that is always going to be true once it happens. So marketing emails clicked is greater than or equal to 3. They will always have more than 3 emails. So you cannot enroll them again for another 3 emails because they've already had 3. And so what you would need to do if you wanted that to be the criteria is what you would have to have marketing emails clicked is known, and that would be they would be constantly every time they clicked an email they'd be re-enrolling. But if you did that, then they would scroll down to a branch that said number of marketing emails clicked is this many or this many or this many, and then you would have to branch out like that. That can get quite complicated. So you might want to think about some other ways around if you wanted to like send an email every time they had clicked 3 emails. You might want to think about like some properties that count how many emails they have clicked. And so we can talk about that with data transformation as well, which is creating a property that is like one that you can customize and that you can use in here. And every time it counts up by 3, then send them the email rather than trying to use the default property. And if you want more information on that, I can post a quick note on that in the LinkedIn group as well. You can also see this one, which is what was mentioned before about re-enrollment on an association. And unfortunately, we just can't use associated objects for re-enrollment. That has been a little bit of a frustration of mine as well. So I feel your pain there if that's something you're working with. The only way that I've been able to get around that is to put that as the next branch and just let sort of everything enroll first and then check for this in the branch portion, and cut out the ones that don't meet that criteria at a branch level rather than at the primary level. But something you'll see when you have a condition that can't be used for re-enrollment, your conditions that can will not be turned on. So in this case, it's going to not allow anything to re-enroll unless it's manual. If you do want things to continue to re-enroll with the page views, even if they they like this is not going to count, it's not going to use this filter, you can check that on and that will still allow them to enroll with this, but it's just going to skip these. So if they have this value, then they will enroll again and again and again, regardless of whether they meet this criteria. So that's where you might want to put that, as a branch instead. And then below that is what I was mentioning before about unenrollment. So if you have a really long workflow, which is a workflow that goes on for many days or even longer. I've seen workflows go on for months or years. Is you can check off these unenrollment criteria as well. So if they no longer meet the primary conditions, if they enter a segment that is made to suppress them, if they meet specific workflow goals, which you can set up in the settings, and then also with merged records. So just be aware of what you want to do with merged records regarding workflow enrollment. Usually I do not turn this on, but if you are merging a ton of records and you want them to enroll when they meet the criteria, you can. Okay, so cross-object enrollment we did kind of mention, but I will note that you can do that on anything. You don't just have to do that on the enrollment. So you can do cross-object filtering on branches as well. So one thing I want to mention with branches is the difference between a branch that is based on a single property and a branch that is based on multiple conditions. So this is a branch based on a single property. So what you can do here is you can select, and we have a lot of people who are creating branches. This is just a time saver to me. You have one property, you want a branch for each of the options on that property. And what we have a lot of people doing is selecting branch and then selecting and or logic and then typing in each option, like creating new branch, new branch, new branch for every single one. If you're just doing a single property, you can just use this one and then set it up as a branch. And again, we have enrolled contact here. So this is your actual contact that's going through the workflow. And you can type in, where's my Are You Human branch? You can type that in and you can create a separate branch for each value in that property. And then you always are going to have your none met branch. And this is going to be, even if you know for certain that there's no one in your database that doesn't have a value in this property, you have to have a none met branch. Don't worry about it. If you know for certain you've got nothing happening there, then just, then just leave it. What I like to do is if I think that I for sure have a value for every single contact in the database with this. So nobody's going to not go through the branches. I like to call the branch 3 or the none met branch error. And then I like to hit save. Let's move these over for now. Then I like to create a little notification for myself if anything happens to go down that branch. So what I mean by that is, you've got your actions under yes, you've got your actions under no, and then under the error branch, just create an internal email to yourself and have it say, hey, whoa, all right, have it say, hey, this workflow had an error, go in and check it. And that allows me to do some spot checking of errors with workflows where I think everybody's supposed to have a value. And then if I notice someone goes through there, I know they don't have a value. I know there's another problem. So that is how I go with usually do all of my none met branches, and then I can monitor on that. So now you have your branches, regardless of whether you set this up as a single branch or as multiple criteria, you can now follow actions from each individual branch and do that. There are things like creating notes, setting record value. You can edit records. You can edit associated records as well. So you can see in this case, I've edited the associated company record to be assigned to me. So up here, when you go edit record, you will have your option for which record type. You can just change it to company. And then you can choose your specific options as well. So if you just want to do the billing, all these buying roles, whatever you use for your association labels, you can specify on those as well. And then you can change that there. Okay. I don't want any questions about specific things you can do in workflows or branches. You have the go-to action as well. I see a lot of people recreating. I'll wait for any questions on this portion of it before I jump into some troubleshooting stuff. I see a lot of people recreating the same actions like 4 or 5 times in their workflow because they want a different first action, and then after that, everything does the same thing. And so a lot of people miss the go-to action option, which is just up at the top of the edit panel. I can't do it because I have one below. The go-to action is at the very top of the edit panel, and it just allows you to connect your actions to a similar one. So instead of building duplicate actions, just go like this, and then you have a connection. So you don't have to put set contact owner on both of these. So you can have, a different first action, and then everything is the same after that, just by using the go-to action section like that. All right. Do we have any Q&As, anything? Or chat? Okay. I will talk about enrollment troubleshooting. Okay. A couple tips for troubleshooting, and I'm going to show you a really fun one that I have that is a recent beta. If you're not in the beta, jump into product updates and go and have a look for this, because it is a new beta and it is a very useful beta, similar to the action types that I dropped in before, which is a way to find out which users are a part of which workflow. And this is something I have been asking for a very long time. So I'm very excited that it is finally here. But there is a new beta for that. All right, so it is hidden a little bit under the 3 dots at the top up here once you've entered the beta, and it is called Find and Replace Users. So when you click on that, what you are able to do is you are able to search for specific users that are referenced in your workflows. And don't worry, you don't have to use the replace feature. So it's just useful for finding as well, if you want to. We'll open that up and we will find myself. And this is going to show you all of the workflows in which I, as a HubSpot user, am referenced. So we have, these are all the places where I'm referenced. I can click on these and open that workflow to that section as well, which I think is so useful. I have spent so much time searching through workflows, trying to figure out where specific team members are listed so that they can be changed or removed or added or something, and not knowing where to do that. Even if you can use this even for adding users with a similar use case. So like if I'm like, oh, I'm adding a new, a second sales rep and I'm currently the only one, I can look at where I'm referenced, and then I know that's where I need to add the new sales rep. If you do want to just go ahead and straight up replace a user with someone else every single time that they are mentioned, you can do that right there. So you just open up the beta, you just have to select your replacement user and you replace them. I think this is a huge beta, not just for doing the replacement, which previously could have taken like hours, but for finding where a user is referenced, again, similar to action type, this is like finding a place to get this. Yes, please run, get this beta. I will say I did not look into the requirements. I would assume it's probably a professional beta. Hopefully, it is a professional level beta, but I did not check on that. We don't, we just get all these betas in our demo. So I didn't actually check that one, but um, I will get rid of that. I will let me know if you find anything about it being enterprise or something. The other thing to do with troubleshooting is the automation issues tab. So I'm not sure if this is going to run very smoothly here, but in the automation issues tab, this one I find can be a little bit confusing, but this is where you can see all recent errors in your workflows. So from here, you'll see the specific action that was impacted. So we have, in this case, there was an edit record action that didn't work. There's a send marketing email action that didn't work, format data action that didn't work, etc. So what you have to do here is just click on view automations, and this will take you to the specific workflows that had that issue. So in this case, we have 3 different workflows that had an edit record issue. And then from there, you can click on troubleshoot and you can see the specific contacts that the issue occurred for. So it's a bunch of clicks to get to seeing the specific people. And then from the specific people, you can then click on view logs, and that will bring you into the individual canvas. Thank you for sharing who gets that. In the chat, you can have a look at the live. Robin has shared, thank you so much, who gets the data. Yeah, they did bury that. But it is just live. Okay, awesome. You can go and use that now if you have any type of professional or enterprise license. So this is the individual enrollment criteria. This is where I do most of my troubleshooting. To be honest, I do more in this than in the general automation issues because usually I'm looking for a specific error that someone has alerted me to occurring. So someone says, hey, this person didn't pass through where they were supposed to, the record didn't get changed, I didn't get the notification, et cetera, and therefore I need to come in and scroll through this individual user. You can also do this by going to view and then enrollment history in the individual workflow and looking for the individual contact who went through it. And from there, you get to see everything on the branch. So here we know they met enrollment criteria, but here we know this is where the error occurred. And when you open up that, you can look at the error and you can see why it didn't happen. So in this case, the company name couldn't be set on associated deals because there are no associated deals. So that is why there's an error. You could figure out why that happened. I mean, that seems pretty straightforward, but sometimes you can figure out why that happened. The other thing you can often do is you can open it up and you can see why a contact met a certain branch criteria. So rather than like trying to figure out what conditions they met, this will tell you exactly why. If you had multiple conditions, once you click on this, it will give you all of them. So company name is known in this case. And if you had a bunch of conditions, it would give you a big list of all of the conditions and tell you which ones they met and which ones they didn't. And this is the best place to come in and troubleshoot an individual enrollment issue with a workflow because you can quickly identify all of that. Okay, really quickly before we get to questions, I am going to talk about AI features because I said I would. So I had mentioned that I don't think that I don't necessarily think that the create workflow via AI tool is super useful. What I do think is useful is using AI tools for custom coding actions. So I am not a developer. I don't write code, but I have found it fairly straightforward to be able to plug some code in to a workflow for a custom coded action using the cut and paste question from an LLM, like Claude or ChatGPT. So that I find quite useful as an AI action. Ask it for a piece of code for HubSpot, and then drop it in there. Let's get into the demo again. There we go. Has anyone used any of the other AI features for workflows outside of, using AI and then cut and pasting it into a workflow? Because I have seen some use cases for them, but I haven't seen a lot of people having a ton of success. So let me know if you have had a ton of success using the workflow AI features, because I think that that would be very interesting to chat about. All right. So yeah, the custom coded actions, when you pop in to create one, they are over here. You also have all of your AI actions. So this is your, whoops, this is your custom coded actions. And this is where you can add custom code. And so this is minimal success having AI help build a workflow from scratch. Yeah, the same. This is where you can add your custom code. So this is where I have found the semi-success, which is clicking on this and then getting my custom code block and just dropping the instructions from the AI into here. And it will even help you with like what you want to add as your outputs and stuff. If you ask the LLM that, especially if you have a like HubSpot trained one, you can add that there. And then this is where I have actually had the most success with using like AI and workflows, which I know is not a built-in feature, but is actually very useful for getting things that you might not necessarily have before. If you are a part of the HubSpot admin hub, like the big one that's put on by HubSpot, next Tuesday, I will be presenting there on a custom coded action that I built for tracking converting product lines and figuring out which product line was the converting one when you have more than one product line. So that's a custom coded action. If you want to hear more about that, pop onto the HubSpot admin hug next Tuesday for the show and tell, and I'll be there talking about that. But otherwise, some of the AI features require the Breeze credits. So that is something to be very aware of. Is anytime you see the little two, God, I think they look like two coins symbol, that is indicating that this is going to use HubSpot credits. Don't be alarmed that you see it up here when you build a workflow. That just means that it can, like this workflow could use HubSpot credits if you had one of these actions. This workflow does not currently use HubSpot credits. So you can add a lot of these, do a lot of these things that I think are like can be quite useful if you're using these, like data agent doing some research on companies, researching company news, inferring value props and ICPs. All of this is pretty good. I have found that the data that comes out is decent, but it does cost credits. So make sure that you're aware of how many credits you have and how many credits each action costs by clicking on learn more in order to, figure out what you're able to use from these AI things as well, including the custom prompts. Those are using credits. I have seen people have success with these where they ask data agent like, hey, can you find the last email that was sent to this client and then record the subject line of it in this property. That does work, but again, it is a credit coster, so just be aware. What else do I have in here for you guys? All right, a couple of hidden tips. I think I went over most of those. One thing I want to point out that I think that some people aren't aware of is I see a lot of people rebuilding workflows because they have a bunch of people they want to run through the workflow that don't meet the enrollment criteria. So for whatever reason, this is a workflow that's already turned on, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I want them to do this whole thing, but they don't meet the enrollment criteria. So I got to clone this workflow, make it a one-time thing. But you can actually just under, not view, under edit, once it's turned on, you can manually enroll contacts. And that doesn't mean that you just put one person in. You can actually manually enroll contacts from a list or from a custom filter. So you can even create a new set of filters and just do a one-time enrollment. They will skip the enrollment criteria when you do that. So they will not need to meet these two criteria in order to manually enroll them. They will just start from here and go down all of the branches. So that's a little bit of a pro tip to add. And then the next pro tip I want to add, which is a new-ish feature, is in the delay section. So if you are someone who does a lot of delay by time, which I do because I have a lot of overlapping workflows. You will find this, which a lot of us have been building workarounds for some time now, but this is a new feature where you can make the delay happen on business days only. So you exclude, it can be only days. Unfortunately, you can't do hours. But if you're excluding for a certain number of days, you can now have it run on business days only, which means that, if you have a 1 day delay and it's delaying from Saturday to Sunday, that's not going to happen. It's going to wait and delay it on your business days, which is really useful for if you're delaying things for notification purposes and things like that. So I just wanted to point out that's a new feature. If you haven't used it yet and you are doing some kinds of workarounds for this, that might be something that you want to take a look at. Okay, so we're right about at time. Are there any Q&As? Shoshani, anything in that came up? Anything you noticed in chat?
Don't see anything.
Okay,
Lots of great engagement throughout the presentation, though.
thank you everyone for being here today. If you have any Q&As, drop them in right now. We do have a couple more minutes left. I'm gonna stop the sharing so that it stops doing that. Just so you know, this is a first in our sort of back to basics series with the Hug. So please make sure that you are a part of the Sales Enablement HubSpot user group on HiveBright. In the follow-up email to this, you will get that information. We'll also just drop into the chat right now our general group. If you were a part of our group on Bevy, you will have been added and you can access our group on HiveBright. But if you were not a part of the group on HiveBright, if you just joined this event from a different promotion, you can join the group as a whole, where you will be able to find all of our upcoming presentations and stuff. And stop sharing, please. And in that case, we will also be sharing the rest of the series. So this is the Back to Basics series where we're talking about some standard tools in HubSpot and the ways to use them and some pro tips, some secret hidden tips, some betas, things like that on those. Like I said, next one is going to be, I believe, in April, and it is going to be all about the new projects object. So that is sort of a starting from basics because it's a new object. But if you have any suggestions for what some future Back to Basics series could be, if you want to talk about forms, if you want to talk about sequences, if you want to talk about pipelines, that's a big one for a lot of people, let us know. We will fit one of those into our series as well. We just want to go through some of those standard tools that have got a lot of upgrades and help people to come up with some pro tips on better ways to utilize them. All right, thank you very much. Please click the link to join our HiveBright, and you will see the recording by email. Again, please bear with us, have some patience. We are moving to the new HiveBright platform, and the email tool is a little bit finicky still, but definitely it will be posted on the LinkedIn, and we will be emailing out a thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.